Welcome back, everyone, to the Delusional Fan with Geraghty and McCloud. Geraghty McCloud, top 5 time. We're going to get into this one pretty quick here. This one, we wanted to go rivalries. We just had a big rivalry game, Packers-Vikings. We've got one coming up on Saturday with Bucky versus Sparty. So rivalries are always good, even when the Bears play the Packers. You know, even though the rivalry maybe hasn't been great recently, it's still, the games are usually close, and they like to, especially fans like to get at each other about it. So we wanted to do top 5 rivalries. I went first the last couple weeks, Ryan. So I'm not going to steal your thunder this time. I think we're going to have some the same. We'll find out. So I'm going to let you go first on this one.
All right. So, like most of my top 5s, they are things that I've witnessed. I'm not really going to reach into something that I wasn't truly a part of. There's one that might be a little bit of a reach, but it still was impactful for me. But my starting with number 5 here, I don't want any of my friends or family to be upset that I'm putting this on there again. It's Michigan versus Ohio State. Mm-hmm. All right.
Also number 5 on my list. I'll just let you know.
Okay, very good. It's known as the game, right?
Yeah.
It's I think the coolest thing about the rivalry between these two teams is what it's at least used to determine, right? They always play the last regular season game of the year against each other. It's always been slated that way. Mm-hmm. And so it has a lot of times, in fact, 22 different occasions, it's determined the Big Ten champion. And so there's something unique about it. They always get heated. They're both obviously Midwestern states, so you have recruits being stolen from Michigan, stolen from Ohio State.
Yep.
Charles Woodson, I bring him up all the time, I feel like, but that's the best one of them all. He's from Ohio. He went to Michigan, won a national title for him. I mean,
won a Heisman,
all those things, right? And it was just kind of one of those things. It's like, I don't want to play for the hometown. I want to go and play against unique things that happen within the rivalry. But that's easily one of the best rivalries in sports, not just my top 5.
I'll bring this up now since you brought it up first.
I hate both of them equally, so everybody knows. I can't stand either team or fan base, but I love that rivalry.
I agree completely, except I'm a Harbaugh guy. I am.
You are, and I'm not.
As absolutely bat shit crazy as he is, I love
they're going to be, hey, and that is the truth. That is a good point, only because I'm not a big Harbaugh guy.
Yeah.
That is going to be so fun to watch.
Entertaining.
Between him and Meyer, and there's things that go on already between recruiting with those. Like, there's just going to be a lot of bad blood from here on out. That's going to be awesome to watch.
I want to give some fun facts. I was going to give them when I did it, but since you have the same one. So their first game ever played was in 1897. Michigan won it 34-0. Last game they played, Ohio State won 42-13 last year in November, right?
Yep.
They've played 112 total games, which is awesome. Michigan, and our friend Logan will actually like this one, so we'll make sure he watches this one. Michigan leads at 58-47-6, so 58 victories to 47, 6 ties. Michigan also has the largest ever victory. You ready for this?
I already saw it.
86-0.
Yep.
Yeah.
What a beat.
Michigan has the longest win streak, 9 years.
The breaks off.
Yeah. But the current win streak right now goes to Ohio State. They've won the last 4 matchups. So, and I think they're going to win this matchup, although it might be closer than last year. So, great rivalry. I'm glad you had that one on there. Okay, go ahead, number 4.
And I think I kind of just brought it up in terms of what goes into a good rivalry would be the bad blood, right? Mm-hmm. There's like a lot of hurt feelings. There's just a lot of animosity that goes into a good rivalry. And so I had to put this on here, and I told you off camera that it might be, I kind of, not reached, but thought outside the box. Michael Jordan / Bulls against the Pistons.
The Jordan rules.
The Jordan rules.
Rules, yes.
So Jordan, obviously the up-and-coming, one of the best players in the league, if not arguably considered the best player in the league.
At that time, I think they were considering that.
Certainly most exciting, right? And the point leader, points leader every season. 3 straight seasons, the Pistons eliminated them.
Yep.
And, Jordan's crying. He's walking off the court. How do I get past these guys? And it took all of that and the team coming together, getting a little bigger, a little stronger to overcome the Jordan rules to finally conquer them.
Well, Jordan changed his entire offseason workout program because of that matchup.
He knew he couldn't. I'm not going to even survive these series in the playoffs if I don't get bigger and stronger and deal with this. And of course, the Pistons won 2 straight championships playing against, eliminating them to go on. Jordan had to watch this team that beat the shit out of him, really, for 3 straight seasons, go on and win championships, too.
Now, beat the shit out of him is a relative term. I found that more physical.
That's what I'm saying. That's
those
what I
playoff
meant.
series were close.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
I only meant physically,
Jordan
literally beat the shit out of him.
Jordan needed to find out what to do to get over the top.
Exactly, not necessarily score, right? Because they had to work, and that really was the only way they could beat the Bulls then, was to beat him up. Obviously pays off.
And they were waiting for Pippen to come into his own too.
Of course. Yeah. Again, that all kind of came together 3 years later.
Yeah.
But it came obviously full circle. We ended up winning over them to go to the finals, win 3 straight. You have a lot of, again, bad blood. You had Isaiah and the team walking off the court when they finally beat them. There's these hurt feelings there. There's that ultimately led to Isaiah Thomas not being allowed on the '92 Dream Team.
That's right.
Even
though he's really good friends.
I'll play, but I'm not playing if he's here. So
and Isaiah was good friends with Magic, and he was not good friends, but had a good relationship with Larry.
Right.
But they said, if Jordan's like, listen, if he's on here.
Oh, and how do you think that conversation went too? Right. They all go, that's fine. Isaiah doesn't have to play.
Whatever you want.
Fine. Right. We won't even let him in the country,
right.
Okay?
McDonald's is one of our sponsors. Right. You're one of theirs, so we're good to go.
Exactly. Look, you didn't have to be a Bulls fan or a Pistons fan. That's one of the better rivalries I remember. And granted, again, wasn't necessarily around for this, but I've watched those games. I've watched all the documentary films, all that good stuff. Number 3, sticking a little bit to home here. Wisconsin, Minnesota, and it's more football. It is the longest.
Paul Bunyan's axe.
It's the longest running rivalry game in all of college football.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so that's one thing. There's this history to it. Now, granted, Minnesota's never been a powerhouse. Wisconsin's never really been a right. They're a successful, consistent football program, right?
Yep.
They're not necessarily a powerhouse. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay. And so you have 2 teams that aren't necessarily the biggest powerhouses. I understand this is not going to be on everybody's top 5 list, but it's one of my favorites.
Right.
And it is one of the cooler celebrations, in my opinion, when they fight, they play for the axe, Paul Bunyan's axe, as you just said. And they go and they chop down the goalpost after the game. Mm-hmm. I love beating Minnesota just for that. And I do really hold a lot to that game. So that's why that's on there for me. There's a lot of crazy finishes that I've watched. Block punts to win the game, return for touchdowns, things like that. I think that was 2004. I had to put it on the list. I just had to. That's one of my favorites, okay?
Yep.
So now we'll get into ones that I actually live and breathe. And
we're 2-1 here, right?
2 is Duke versus UNC.
Yeah, I knew you were going to have that on your list.
Yeah, and it really took until 2 years ago when Duke bounced us out of the tournament.
Is that even still a rivalry?
Yes. Absolutely. Dude, they're separated by, I think it's 20 miles or something like that.
I know. I think to them it is, but to the rest of the country is
to me it is. I've always been a Duke fan.
All right.
I've always been a Duke fan my entire life. And granted, I got coming up. This is kind of why my brother's a Cowboy fan. He was at an impressionable age when they started winning championships, right? That's how
they were on TV a lot. And they would go to Green Bay and win.
That's how it was for me with Duke, man. Right. It was those early years in the 90s, and then obviously later in the 90s they won another one. Mm-hmm. Going to Final Fours all the time. And I was huge into basketball growing up. It has to be on my list. You have, again, separated by a small distance. The games are always tight. The games are always close. UNC actually leads pretty big in this all-time series, 134 to 108.
I would have never guessed that.
See? And so...
Yeah.
There is some interesting... Now, granted, you have to remember, though, Duke wasn't anything of substance until Krzyzewski got there.
Krzyzewski.
Right, leading into that late 80s, early 90s. So they've actually overcome a lot in that. I'd actually like to see what the record was before he took over, right?
Probably terrible.
It's
still pretty big.
Right, probably 100 to 60 or something like that, right? So they've overcome a lot in that regard. It's one of the best rivalries. It's always a national primetime game.
Yep.
It's always, and so again, I grew up watching that, and I watch it every year, both games. Similar to Michigan, Ohio State, that does sometimes tend to determine an ACC champion as well. So there's stakes involved. Packers Bears is my number 1, and it's very simple why. I put more pressure on that game for myself as a fan than any sporting event, period, unless my team's playing for a title of some
Super
kind.
Bowl, right? Yeah.
That's it. That's
And
why it's on there. I need to win that game.
Well, and for the people that don't know, one of the reasons Ryan and I started this show, you grew up a Packer fan in Illinois.
Yes.
I grew up a Bear fan, mostly in Wisconsin. So those games are hugely important to us, and I got a feeling you might see that on my list somewhere too.
I was assuming it would be, and there's no fault in that.
Right.
Come on, that has to be on yours.
Well, and because there's nothing that gives you more emotionally involved than that rivalry, because of what happens if your team loses. I really think.
Of course. Well, in terms of the shit you're gonna get, like
everything
the heat you're gonna
Yes.
get. Okay,
and how you feel. Just when that clock hits 0 and the game is officially over, and you know your team lost.
Right.
Now maybe it's because that's more recent for me, the years of losing.
Yes.
Because I grew up in an era where
Packers weren't
it was
anything.
not close. The same way you grew up in an era where it really was not close. You know, so
yes.
now it's come full circle for me, and it drives me nuts because I'm like, where were all you Packer fans in the '80s because you weren't there?
Well,
You know,
right.
So yeah, I get it.
It has to. Yes.
Yeah.
That's exactly the way I feel about it. That's why it's number 1 on my list.
Yeah.
Outside of the 2 Super Bowls that I've watched, the Packers win,
Yeah.
right? And I've watched them lose one as well.
96 and
In 2010.
yeah.
And it was an ugly, sloppy, not boring game, because I stood up the entire time. I'll never forget the NFC title game against the Bears. That is hands down my favorite game of all time.
Talking the Cutler MCL game?
Yes. And again, everything that goes into it, throw it out the window. At the end of the day, we won that game, and I needed us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well,
I felt like I was willing, and I had
But
nothing
here's the
to do
thing:
with
the
it.
Packers
but
had
I
already won twice that year,
needed
right?
them.
Oh no, or
Yeah.
the Bears had won.
No.
Wait, no. What was the?
We won. Yes, we had won. You guys could have knocked us out of the playoffs by winning Week 16.
That's right, and we didn't. Okay.
You lose that game.
Packers
You
won twice,
end up hosting the NFC title game. Here's the thing, and not trying to stick up for Bears fans, but they weren't even expected to be in that position that year. They weren't. Packers were the preseason Super Bowl favorite, period, in the entire league.
And kind of shit the bed in the season.
Yeah,
Yep.
struggled throughout the year, had some injuries, and Aaron was out for 2 weeks.
Yep.
This is really when he was starting to come along, too. But yeah,
10-6 got
down
you in the
second.
playoffs.
And again, Aaron had a
by
bad
beating
game.
the Bears. Yep.
Aaron had a bad game in
Well,
that.
that Bear defense was pretty good.
It was very good. Aaron throws that pick on the goal line to Urlacher, and he has the shoestring tackle to save the that was.
game, yep.
He even jokes about it, but he's dead serious. He said that was the best play I had all game. Was making that tackle. That was the most impactful play I made.
It would have. There's no Super Bowl.
He would have housed. He would have
Yeah.
housed that pick. Look, all I can tell you is I rarely would stand up for an entire game that I'm not physically at. I couldn't sit down during that game.
Yeah.
Packers or Bears is ultimate to me. So anyway, that's my 5. Packers, Bears, Duke, UNC, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Jordan/Bulls against the Pistons, and Michigan versus Ohio State.
As always, I'm impressed by your list.
Awesome.
I don't care about your Duke UNC.
That's fine.
The rest of the list I love.
Awesome.
I do. I love your list.
We'll
That's
see if
fantastic.
I feel the same about you.
All right, so we'll graze over number 5.
That's
So we
fine,
talked
sure.
about it. Michigan, Ohio State, and here's the thing: I'm not a fan of either of those teams either. I can't stand either of those
Yep.
teams, but you cannot deny the history of the rivalry.
Yep.
What it means, especially now, for the fact that they have a Big Ten title game with the 2 separate conferences,
Which I love.
Ohio State and Michigan. Being in that conference, like you said,
Yep.
it always decides who's going to win, who's going to play
it
in
won't
the title.
decide the conference from now, but it will decide who goes.
Correct.
Right.
So it's a big game, and this year I really do feel it's going to have title implications.
Going to start to do that every year. which is
Hopefully,
cool.
hopefully the Badgers can spoil that. But if you're being honest and real about the whole thing, that game might have title implications
Yes.
and who makes the Final
Yep,
Four. So
I agree.
yes, Michigan, Ohio State's fantastic. So I pulled back the covers a little bit for one, and I actually thought you might have this too. I went Yankees, Red Sox, and here's the thing
Yep.
about Yankees.
Thought
Red
about
Sox,
it.
number
That's an
4.
honorable mention.
Yeah.
Just because of the history there. So
And here's the thing: if you really, and I dug into the history, which might have been a mistake because it actually almost made me.
it's disappointing.
Yeah, it almost made me take it off the
The
list.
Yankees just crush them, huh?
Well, yeah, ever since basically Boston sold Babe Ruth,
Yeah. They've lost.
but it didn't matter to Boston fans because every time the Yankees came to town, the hatred was there.
Oh, yeah.
Every time Boston went to New York, even though New York is a dominant New York has the most professional championships of any team, and it's not close. Okay? But yet, there's something with Boston. And then the fact that Boston did what they did with our boy Theo coming back down 0-3 to win, to beat the Yankees to make it to the World Series and then win their first World Series since the Curse of the Babe. That to me, I mean, that's a rivalry. And because I think, and why it's an outstanding rivalry, same with Michigan, Ohio State, with Boston, New York, is 100 years from now, if this earth is still here, that will still be a rivalry. Same thing with Michigan and Ohio State, right?
Yep.
That is one of those long-standing rivalries that I'll even, and I watch Cubs baseball die hard. I watch every single game, no matter what.
Yep.
I'll even turn on Yankees Boston just to see a little bit. You know.
Look, I think if you asked anybody like putting together a show at ESPN, let's say, right, and it was just like we're going to do a top 5 rivalries, I think it would be Ohio State, Michigan, Duke, UNC, Red Sox, Yankees. I'm just saying.
You're talking ratings too, yeah.
Well, no, and I'm not even getting it.
But
I'm
that's
just
why
saying
people
those
tune
are
in.
the most historical, I feel like, and they're the most well-known. So, yeah, I have no beef with you putting that on the list. Again, that was an honorable mention for me.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Number 3, you're going to appreciate. Wasn't on your list.
Yep.
No, what were you going to say?
Plus the comeback. I don't know if you mentioned that. Okay, right. The comeback with Red Sox, Yankees. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of history.
The first World Series for Boston. In,
exactly, right.
70s or whatever, 60s.
Of course it had to happen against the Yankees. That's awesome.
Well, and that's why it was
awesome.
fun. That's why it was fun. That's why I don't care that the Cubs are going to have the best record this year. I don't care the Cubs won the Central this year. I trust Theo.
Yep.
Because Theo did it for Boston.
And Theo we trust.
And Theo we trust. So, number 3, I went old school a little bit for you. For you and for me. Now, here's the thing. I'm not a fan of either of these teams. I'm really not.
Yeah.
But it was something I grew up with, I learned about, and why I rooted for the guy I rooted for so much. And it ties in a little bit to your Bulls, Jordan, Pistons.
Okay.
My number 3 is Celtics, Lakers.
Again, that would be on that. Yeah.
I grew up in the 80s, which, again, I brought fun facts to this for that reason.
One of my top 5s that I wanted to make before you get into it, I wanted to do Larry Bird. Or, Larry and Magic. That's a great rivalry, right? I mean, that spanned from college to, and that goes into Celtics, Lakers.
Well, 84, 85, 87. Lakers, Celtics. And, again, Celtics won the 84, Lakers won the next 2. I mean, we're talking a rivalry. Postseason history for these teams, they played in 59, 62, 63, 65, 66, 68, 69, 84, 85, 87, 2008, 2010. Celtics, Lakers.
It's always.
Awesome.
It's
rivalry.
Always them. For the longest time, it was always them playing in championship games.
And that Lakers Showtime team is the only team that I will pause to when someone says, what is the greatest team in NBA history? Because I'll still take the 96 Bulls.
Yes.
But I'll pause for a little bit because I'll think back on those Showtime Lakers and think they had the greatest scorer of all time
in
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Okay, career, yeah,
career-wise.
Yep.
Numbers-wise. I meant numbers.
Yes. Okay. Sure. And
they had my starting point guard on my all-time top 5 team, which we already talked about, Magic Johnson.
Yep.
And then they had the rest of the cast to go along with it.
Of course.
So. And that's the stupid part, is then you go over to the Celtics and you look at what they had. They had Larry Legend, who was one of the greatest shooters, who is still, statistically, the greatest shooter of all time.
Yep.
I mean, maybe next to what Steph Curry's done the last 2 years, but I'll still take Larry Legend in a playoff game because we know Steph can't do it in the playoffs.
I think that's what's most interesting about a Lakers-Celtics rivalry.
Yeah.
To me, is that they kind of during that era, that 10-year stretch or whatever, right? 15-year stretch. They embodied their cities, right? You had Showtime Lakers, flashing lights, all this excitement, crazy passing and scoring. And then you flip over to the Celtics on the East Coast and they're fundamentals and blue collar and right?
They were the Pistons before the Pistons too.
So well, and they didn't like each other because of that too. Like, you haven't gone through it. You don't have to go to sleep in Boston every night. You get the LA life.
Well, and again, I'm going to go back.
Nightlife.
I want to go back to your rivalry.
Yeah.
The Pistons became the Pistons, same way the Bulls became the Bulls, because the Celtics were the Celtics.
Yeah.
Pistons had to overcome the Celtics and their toughness and their tenacity, and then, of course, their skills as a basketball team.
Yep.
And you see Isaiah and Joe Dumars and even Lambeer and those guys are saying, if we don't get by the Celtics, we don't become the team we become, the same way Jordan never became what he became.
It's the coolest thing about the NBA. If you actually look at the history of the NBA, it does go in that format.
Yeah.
There's always a team that stands in the way of another player and another team. They have to overcome that. It really does, though. I mean, you can kind of go through the history of the league, whether it's Pistons and this and that, and it always does seem to kind of follow that trend.
So yeah, my number 3 rivalry, Boston, LA. You just can't. Celtics Lakers is fantastic.
Yep. You are kind of going chalk here.
I told you I was going to go chalk a little bit off camera. Now, this is where I'm kind of going.
I like it. Let's
away from the chalk, and I'm going the greatest fight rivalry I've ever seen. Now, here's the thing: I never saw it. All I know about is what I've learned, what I've watched from replays, and of course, it had what a lot of people consider the greatest fighter of all time. I'm talking Ali Frazier. They had what's considered the 3 greatest fights of all time. And here's the thing: their first fight, it was literally nicknamed the fight of the century, and Ali lost. Lost. So. Ali is coming back after...
How many times did they fight?
They fought 3 times.
Fought 3.
Ali won the last 2.
Okay. Sure.
But it's not like he annihilated Frazier.
When was the last fight?
The last fight... So, again, I brought fun facts.
I'm just kind of throwing this out. I'm sorry. But,
no. The last fight... Let me see.
I want to know how old you were during the last fight.
This is the year I was born.
Okay.
That was the Thrill in Manila. No. I'm sorry.
Thrill in Manila would have been the first one,
that was... No, I'm sorry. That was the second one, I think. No, the second, First one was in Madison Square Garden.
Okay.
Frazier broke Ali's jaw, which nobody had really hurt Ali before. Frazier hurt him, won by unanimous decision. The second one, let's see here. Do I even have where that second one was? I think the second one was Thrilla. No, the second one was Philippines, right? Holy shit.
I do believe this. Yeah, it was the first or the second. Thrill in Manila was not the third.
No, the third one was Philippines. So second one was Thrill in Manila.
Yeah.
Muhammad Ali, of course, won that one by unanimous decision, 12 rounds. Third one, he TKO'd Frazier, and then of course he kept his title that time. 3 greatest fights I wouldn't say they're 3 of the best fights I've ever watched. The best fight I ever saw, boxing-wise, is still Iran Barkley and Roberto Duran, but I can still go back to all 3 of those fights, and you can watch every round. And Ali fighting was artwork. It really was. That's why it's not why they call it sweet science, but he personifies why they call it the sweet science, because he was masterful out there, and you saw it again. Remember, so he loses to Joe Frazier. Joe Frazier goes and loses to George Foreman. Ali goes and fights Foreman in Africa and beats Foreman. It was just a crazy time in heavyweight title fighting.
Yeah.
And that's why I think boxing has kind of gone downward lately, because we don't have a heavyweight champion that anybody cares about anymore.
Yes.
Where people loved or hated Ali, people loved or hated Joe Frazier, people loved or hated George Foreman.
You see the big dogs get after it. Yeah, absolutely. Especially in boxing. There's something about being like you just said, the heavyweight champion. Right.
So that is my number 2 rivalry, Ali Frazier. Again, now I reached back in this one. I didn't get to see any of them live, of course not.
Sure.
But it's something that if I'm ever seeing a replay on TV, of course I pop it on there,
Anytime I bring up the early 90s Bulls, that's the way for me, so I understand.
Obviously. My number 1, because we talked about it, Bears
Yours
back.
is number 1 too?
Yeah, it's my number 1.
It's gotta be. I knew it would be.
So again, fun facts, 192 meetings.
Yep.
First meeting was in 1921.
Yep.
Chicago won that. Last meeting was obviously last year. Chicago won on Favre night.
Yep.
They meet again October 20th. That was at week 7, is it?
Something
like that.
Yeah, 6 or 7.
Chicago still narrowly leads the season series, or the all-time series, 94 to 92 to 6. It's just one of those rivalries where you don't care if you go 2-14 as long as you beat your rival. And that's the way I kind of feel it. It sucks to say it that way, but I know the Bears are bad this year, but I just want to be.
I don't think you phrase that properly though,
Maybe
because it does matter if you go 2-14. if you're going to go 2-14,
Yes.
you
Can I
want
at
those
least beat the
two
Packers?
wins
Right.
to be against us. And I wouldn't expect it any other way from you to not have them on, or to have them on there number one. It means a lot to you in your circumstances you brought up, and it means a lot to me in that same regard, coming from Illinois, being a Packers fan.
Yeah.
First meeting was actually, just looking at this now, first meeting was on my birthday. That
Yeah.
makes sense, yeah.
I love this stat here. Well, I don't love it, but it goes to show why Packer fans are the way they are. The longest win streak in Packer history is 10 games
The
from
longest
94 to
streak
98.
in the series.
Yeah, from
right.
94 to 98,
Yep.
which is the Brett Favre era.
You know, and to be fair, I'm looking at this too. To be fair, the Packers just won, I think, 7 or 8 straight before the Bears won one last year. So it was, I think, 7.
It was close.
So they had a fairly good streak here recently too.
Yeah.
And it's starting to, the way the Packers have been playing, we'll see what happens here. But I will go back to the most important of all rivalry games was the NFC title game. Which
we talked about it again. That was the
And I give you my
ACL game,
perspective
the
and how
Caleb
excited,
Haney 2-touchdown game.
How excited I was. Like, how did you feel coming out of that game? I never got that. Please be honest now. Like, if you like don't like bringing it up, we can switch.
Here's the thing.
but-
I had a really fun day. So, no, believe it or not, I
leading
did.
up to that.
Here's why.
Come on, you couldn't have been. This is to go to the Super Bowl, dude.
Dude, listen.
Okay.
You have to listen to the story.
All right, sorry.
So my friends had a Packer party, a Packer Bear party. But I was the only freaking Bear fan there. So it was supposed to be a Packer Bear
call
party.
it a Packer Bear
But I was the
party,
only
right.
Bear fan there. My friend's Wes.
Packers Bear party.
Yeah, my friend Wes, his ex-wife Adrian. But anyways, they had a Packer Bear party at their house. But what they did beforehand is we had a punt, pass, and kick challenge. We did before the game, which I won. And so I was flying high.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
I'm wearing my throwback
This is a
striped
good
jersey.
omen.
Oh,
This is a
dude.
good
I'm
omen.
like, dude, I'm feeling great, man. And then
They could have used you out there.
they could have used me. I could have thrown the rock a little bit. But actually, the day was fun, obviously, until the loss. Here's the thing. As much as I am a delusional fan, I'm also a realist. I didn't expect to win that game. I really didn't. I never trusted Jay Cutler, and I've always been scared of Aaron Rodgers.
Sure. Okay.
I guess is the best way to put it. I've never liked the Bears Tampa 2. Even when they went to the Super Bowl, I never liked it. Because I watched smart quarterbacks pick it apart. I never loved the Tampa 2 defense.
So, 06, you're going to the Super Bowl. You're like, we have to play Peyton Manning. We're fucked.
I thought we could win that game because our defense. That was one of the better
Smartest
defenses.
quarterback of all time, though.
He is, but he didn't play great in that. We didn't lose
No,
because
I'm
of
saying
Peyton
going
Manning.
into the game,
Going
if you're
into the
saying
game,
that
I was pretty
a
optimistic.
smart quarterback
Right,
against his defense. That's all I'm saying.
But I was pretty optimistic in that game because Tampa 2 or
it's
not,
Super
we had
Bowl and you're a fan,
we
that's
had,
why.
but we also had playmakers on that team.
Yeah, you did.
So Tampa 2 or not, we had guys that could make a difference, and they did. They played well.
We're kind of getting off on a tangent, but yeah, kickoff return for
Devin Hester. I'm
Right.
like, we got this.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, Rex Grossman takes the field and things go awry. But so Rex Grossman went to a Super Bowl, so you know
I can't believe he's starting quarterback in a Super Bowl.
So-
It's so funny.
So that's my number one, man.
No, I love it, man. I'm glad you had them on there. I expected you to have them on there. Maybe not number one, but I like both our top fives. Those are good. I'm glad. I knew you'd bring in a fight, too. You have to bring a fight in. That's all right. Nothing wrong with that.
Why not? All right, when we come back, it is week 3 in the NFL. Ryan and I both crapped the bed a little bit with our picks last week. We'll go over that a bit because we did not do well. And I don't think anybody did well because locks were not locks and upsets were not
This
upsets.
is the NFL, man.
Yeah,
This is
that's
the NFL.
why we love the game that we love.
That's right.
So we'll be right back with our week 3 NFL picks.